Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Now, in September 2022, I was lucky enough to board a flight to Vietnam, where I'd be jumping in swamps, climbing up hills, and taking on one of the toughest challenges with an entire group of incredible, crazy, quirky, amazing, and inspiring individuals who I'm lucky enough to call my friends, as we all went over and took part in SAS Who Dares Wins. Now, with any kind of TV production, they are always constrained to fit the absolute best bits into a short window of time. So as you won't be surprised to hear, there is so much more to these individuals than meets the eye. So on this mini series of podcasts, you get to listen in as I catch up with this incredible group of people. We discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly as it comes to SAS Who Dares Wins, our favorite instructors, our biggest challenges, and also learn a little bit more about what drives them, what inspires them, and how this journey was for them. It's been so much fun reminiscing and catching up, so if you are sitting comfortably, let's buckle up for safety and get in there with today's episode. I'll see you on the other side.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
I was like, how do I work this? And then I was like, I'm gonna answer it, and I'm gonna be like, hello.
Hey,
How
how are you?
Aren't I so embarrassing? I'm like, I should know how to work all of this stuff.
You're the young one out of the two of us. You're fucking on it. You know this shit. Come on, get your head out your ass. What you doing?
I know, that's what I mean, and I'm not. Like one of my coaches that does like my mental stuff, he like tries to Zoom me. Like he makes me do these Zoom calls, and I'm like, I can't do it. Behind me.
So do you have like a proper mindset coach? Do you have a sports psychologist?
Yeah, for
Wow.
competition. So
Shit.
I and he makes me Zoom him because most of the time he's not really anywhere near me. And then I'm like, I don't know how to work it. I can't get on it. And he's like, turn your camera on. And I'm like, I can't.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. When did you, how old are you now? Sorry.
22.
22, sports psychologist. When did you first start thinking about working with a sports psychologist, or was it something that was kind of like imposed on you? Because I started working with them a little bit when I was doing some GB stuff, but when I was really young, and I think I was too young to really benefit from it. But there's been some amazing books like Professor Steve Peters is a very obvious one, Damien Hughes, people like that. When did you first start learning about it or using one?
Probably only like nearly 2 years I've been working with him now. And it was actually because like most people, I coach kids, so like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so some of the kids basically struggle with obviously like crying, being super nervous, which is obviously like so normal because they're just so young. But basically, I had a friend that like does the coaching psychology stuff, and I had a really talented girl, and she's still very talented, and he helped me with her to be able to like get over being so nervous at competition because she was so good in the gym, but just when she got to competition, she would just like outbreak cry because of her nerves. And he helped her. However, mine was like the opposite. Like I don't get very nervous for anything. Um, so I would
Ever? Have you
basically
have you
get to
ever
competition.
been sort of nervous or anxious, or because you've been fighting since you were a baby? Not like fighting like because you're a bitch. I mean
Yeah,
like you've been grappling and getting in amongst it since you were very young. When did you first start doing it?
yeah, yeah. So I was like 16. So I wasn't like I was young, but I was like still like pretty like
Why did
I
I
feel like
think you
you
were doing
kind
it
of
when
have
you
your
were little? Do you got siblings?
No, but I did like other sports. I guess I've always been active, but
Okay.
and then I basically I would get to competitions and just start yawning, like
Wow.
just not like just not like I could still and I'd find it really hard to like ramp myself up,
Yeah, to like
and I
really get
actually felt
G'd
like
up
when
for it.
yeah, and when I did get a bit nervous, I'd perform better, so it'd like frustrate me that I wasn't getting nervous.
But there is
Um,
also that, what's it called? And I'm sure they speak to you about it, that stimulation curve where you need optimum stimulation. And I forget, it's like an inverted U theory, isn't it? Where if you're
yeah.
understimulated, you're not at your optimum, but equally you can burn through energy if you've got that anxious excitement and you make mistakes and you rush moves and stuff like that. There's that sweet spot, isn't it? I forget what it's called. It's going to annoy me now.
Yeah, you almost need like a middle, but I was probably just thinking about what time I could go to bed that night. Um, and he and he just helped me. He helps, still helps me. Just basically get more excited before I go on. Wake my wake my endorphins up.
How do you do that then? What was some of the methods or some of the, strategies that they said that this is what we need to be looking for?
So I have like quite a lot of like really discreet hand and like head routines that I'll do. So I'll do like a lot of like moving my like clicking my hands in a certain way or tapping my fingers, and then like I'll do a lot of head tapping. So like even on what we're about to start chatting about on SAS, I would have randomly like maybe when there was like water tasks that I was obviously really shit at, um, I would kind of like try and channel myself by doing my routine with my head to try and wake my endorphins up to know that like I'm about to do something that's not going to be very comfortable for me.
God, I love that. You're absolutely right, and it's all about priming. Did he mention anything like priming or anchoring or anything like that? Does he ever use words like
Yeah,
that? Yeah,
yeah, so he does, and he just tries to he does loads of like I really like obviously different routines work for everyone, but I really like the hand routines or my head tapping routine. Like I like a mini routine to be like, okay, after this routine, like you are gonna like it's go time, you gotta go. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
So
100%. I've seen so many
yeah,
like that. There's people that have. Have you heard of the hairband or elastic bands ones where they have them on their wrists? Where they like have a
yeah,
reset, where they snap it on the wrist or they swap sides. There was a great one. I used to use this when I give talks and stuff like that. Sometimes when you can get in that negative mental cycle, I almost envisage my head is like a stereo player or like an old set player or something like that. And I literally like, touch the left side of my temple to press pause on that negativity and then literally touch the right side to just engage it. And almost like there was another one where did you ever watch Harry Potter when you were a kid?
yeah,
Yeah, and do you know when they used to put the wand on their head and they could like pull shit out of their head, like pull a thought out?
yeah,
I was never really into Harry Potter, but I would like when I hear that, when I feel that negativity. There's two, I promise. I'll do two more and then I'll stop boring you. But I used to like pull it out of my head and I could like imagine it like coming out and I would like throw it out the window if I was driving. I'd be like, that shit is in there. It's like it's like a
a
film,
flashy
like some
thing.
shit that's
Yeah,
just like, and you just need to scrape it off your head and get rid
yeah,
of it. And a great technique somebody told me was, when you come home and you've had a bit of a rough day or you've had an argument or like, work was a bit shit or you had a bad competition, I would get out of
yeah,
the car and I would think to myself, these frustrations, these thoughts that I'm having, they don't belong inside. They don't belong at home. They don't belong with
yeah,
my family. So we've got a number of trees and stuff outside our front of our house, and I would literally like pick the thoughts out and I would hang them on a tree, and I would leave that stuff outside, and I would say to myself, you know what? If I still feel this way when I come out in the morning, I can pick it up and I can deal with it. But this shit does not belong inside. It is not coming inside with me, and I would almost do that. And I kind of did it at the gym as well, where I like if I was going for a workout, I would try and mentally take stuff out of my head and put it in my bag and say I'll deal with that when I'm out. I'm going to go and train now. But yeah, sorry, I waffled away there. But like all of
no,
those things, kind of come around that, and it's amazing to see that you obviously utilize it. And there's no surprise that you utilize it because what level are you performing at now? You're at the. Are you going to the Worlds again in a month or so?
yeah, so I'm going to the Europeans
European,
in
sorry.
5 weeks. Yeah. And then I plan to go to the Worlds next year, but yeah, let's see how it goes.
That's crazy. Well, it's not crazy at all, but I remember when we were over there, we were talking about, because now I've got my head reversed. You said you felt like you started really late for someone who's gotten to the level that you're at. You're competing against people who did start, sorry, when they were very young, and you felt like you came
Yeah,
a bit later to the game.
yeah, absolutely. So like I'm like my first like Europeans, I had only been training maybe for like 8 months, and I was competing against girls that had been training since they were like four. So they had like I was 16 and they'd been training since they were four, and I was like 8 months in, and you kind of just can't like you can't think about that. Like there's so many like pros and cons to starting early, and but yeah, I'm like some people would still consider me as like a late comer to the sport, but people
Why did
start
you
like
start
this.
doing it? What attracted you to it?
So both of my dad and my brother trained jiu-jitsu. So they was like they just started, and then my dad was like, "Come on, you can't just sit at home. Like, let's just go." I'd like tried kickboxing and stuff before, but like it was okay. But like I wasn't like I wasn't obsessed with it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and then he took me jiu-jitsu and basically couldn't get me out of the dojo, and I just ran with it really.
What did you want to do when you were a kid? Because now you pretty much work as a professional athlete, right?
So I do still work full time, but um, like I work from home, so it's really good. And because like in jiu-jitsu, there isn't like a whole lot of money involved. Um, because it's such like it's not new, but it is new like compared to like judo or football or like
Yeah.
money doesn't get pumped into the sport. Um, so you kind of have to like you have sponsors and stuff, but you do most of the stuff like you have to fund yourself, which is difficult. But I don't really when I was younger, I didn't really think about doing anything. Like I was just I think I've always been someone that just like lives in the moment. Like I've never really thought like even now, like I don't really think like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do in like 10 years time because I just think I don't know really what's gonna happen. And if I think like that I could like pass off other opportunities.
How do you see the sport moving forwards then? Because there is, I know you saying like there's not loads and loads of money in it, but there are people that are doing, I mean, people like Gordon Ryan and people come to mind for me. What's the other guy? Leandro Silva, that guy. They're kind of the top level in the game and they are able to make a living from it. But I think things like MMA and UFC and stuff like that seems to be where a lot of the focus has gone. But jiu-jitsu is such a strategic chess game more so than the fast paced striking of things like MMA.
Yeah, so I do think it will like massively evolve and maybe like if they took it to the Olympics, like could maybe give it more exposure. But currently, like there's just so many organizations that do multiple rule sets that it's quite hard to like narrow
Mm.
down which would go into the Olympics, which would work for the Olympics. Like Olympics, I guess does good and bad things for every sport, but I just think it would give that like support to the athletes because currently there's just zero. Like
Yeah.
the
You can't get
like
funding in the same way that a Olympic athlete would. You can't access the
yeah,
same grants and stuff like that because it's not considered in the same realm at the minute. Even though it's with the greatest respect, a significantly more physical discipline than some stuff like, well, it'd be hard to point them out, but fucking curling and shit like that. I'm like, fucking really?
yeah, yeah. Literally, it's such a hard sport, and they just make it like it's almost made harder because there's no support for it. So like, it's a sport where you potentially have to train like 3 hours of solid jiu-jitsu a day, but you also need to have a full-time job, still do strength, still have good cardiovascular. Like, like you're just like,
I feel like it's the purest sport that was a sport before it was a sport. And what I mean by that is if you put two kids together, they will fucking wrestle. They are gonna do
yeah,
jujitsu without knowing they're doing it. They'll be cranking on each other's arms and legs and crawling around each other and rolling around. It's primitive, it's primal. It's so much fun. You know what I mean? I did it for probably 7 months last year before I had some massive dude crank on my neck. Just because, when you sometimes get that big person in the gym, and I never go into anything with an ego. But I found this guy, and we were going to do some rolling together. I'm pretty sure he just wanted to show that he was better than me. And I'm crap. I'm really crap. And I said that to him. But as soon as I tapped, and he just kept cranking on my neck, and it's not been the same since. That was something I wanted to ask you about, because you said about the pros and cons of starting early, longevity and injuries and stuff like that in your sport. I mean, obviously, we hear people like the Joe Rogans of the world. He speaks to many of the greatest athletes that operate in your sort of sphere, but there doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of longevity because of the intensity and how much pressure it puts on the joints. Does that never? You don't seem the type to get phased. I know we've alluded to it a couple of times already, but you're not the type to kind of like get worried, which must actually be great for your body because you don't live in a state of anxiety. But
I think basically, it's hard because like any freak accident could happen, but I think the way like you approach jujitsu can help you from stop being injured. So like not having an ego, so just tapping when it's time to tap. Also like being selective with your training partners. So like as a white belt, I personally didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had the right to turn down roles, which
Mhm.
was really incorrect of me. Whereas now, like I'm a purple belt now, and there is no point me rolling with a 80 to 100 kilo white belt, like man. There is no point. He's not going to get anything out of it. I'm not going to get anything out of it other than keeping this guy away from me and
Mhm.
making sure he doesn't pass my
Because he
guard so he
doesn't know
doesn't
what he's
smash
doing as
me.
much. He could injure you quite easily just by accident.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many people for that, like that type of body shape or style to roll with, because ultimately most people that come to the gym are men that are 80 to 100 kilos. Like
Yeah.
that is that's pretty, you'll see a lot of them in the room. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not familiar. Whereas for me, I'm probably one or two of under 60 kilo girls in the room. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to roll with me. Like it's probably very do you know what I mean? Like, and don't get me wrong, I don't feel like I couldn't handle myself, but it's just really like a
Not
waste of
worth
5 minutes for
Yeah,
both of
yeah,
us. Yeah. Now I'm happy to say to someone like, listen, mate, like with the greatest respect, there's probably better people for both of us in this room to roll with. Like I'm pretty happy to roll with like 100 kilo black belt or purple belt and above, because like they kind of just know, like
they know
they
what to
know,
do.
like
Yeah.
yeah. So they're not gonna do like a drastic movement that's gonna rip my knee out the wrong place or rip my bloody arm in the wrong way. Like, and
Yeah.
then I don't fight to live another day when I'm quite frankly not that bothered about beating up this guy, and he's probably
Yeah.
not frankly quite bothered about beating up me. So I think it's just being more selective with your training partners, like trusting them, and like strength training whilst you're doing jujitsu, because loads of people in jiu-jitsu are like anti-strength training because
Why?
like because I just think jiu-jitsu doesn't give jiu-jitsu is one of those things that you can actually be quite unfit and still be really good at
Really?
it. Because you can just work the game out
You
and
can
then
be
you
such
can
a
still
technician.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, I strongly believe that doing strength training like helps build your muscles. Building your muscles obviously helps strengthen your joints and like less chance of injury. So I
It's
personally do
nicer
a lot
to
of
have
strength
it and not
training.
need it than need it and not have it, I suppose. Like to say, if you come up against someone who is an equal technician, but you just have that little bit extra to be able to crank them into the position you want them, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of like, I have to have good cardio, I have to have good strength, and I have to have good jiu-jitsu, because if I meet someone that's really strong, but my jiu-jitsu is good, but they can just move me wherever they like, then I'm not much use. Yeah.
So what made you want to turn from this training and do something ridiculous like the SAS stuff? Because it would pretty much be kind of a risk. If I mean, now we're looking at idiots like me ripping the freaking patella tendon out. I
Mm.
was so worried that someone else was going to have an injury because a few people did pick up some stuff. Why did you actually want to go on it?
I don't actually, do you know what? I don't know. Like, I actually don't know. So, like, the funniest thing is my friend actually like basically applied for me.
There's a few people after I've been speaking with some of our recruits. A few of them have done that.
And she was basically just like, you will be so good, so good. And I was literally like, my friend's called Andrew, and I was like, I can't swim. Like, I literally have never done a swimming lesson in my life. Like, I can't
That was
swim.
a massive thing when I spoke to a few people. If it was you and Stephen, like we were so worried
Mm.
on the first few days. But sorry, I interrupted you, but go on.
And and she was like, "Oh, I'll be fine. You can just get some swimming lessons." And I'm like, "I've never had a swimming lesson, like never, not even when I was younger." So she applied, and they called me, and I was like, well, when she applied, I was just like, "Oh, it won't happen anyway. Like, who cares?" But they called me, and then was like, "Yeah, come along to this fitness thing, like fitness test, blah blah blah." And I was like, "All right, whatever." So I was so ill. Like, I went along. I literally was so unwell. Did the fitness test. I was like, oh, that was horrendous. Did all my interviews, and then they were like, oh, we'd like for you to come on the show. And I was like, I better get me some swimming lessons. And this was like 4 weeks out, so I had 4 weeks to like
Jesus
find a.
Christ.
Yeah, it was horrendous because I
How come
applied
you'd
really.
never had swimming lessons before?
Just my like where my childhood was a bit shit. My parents obviously just that was like the least of their problems. So, um, they just never sent me. And then obviously when I got older, um, I basically like bought my house as soon as I left home. So like I left home at 17 and bought my house at 18, and I just didn't like have the freaking money to go to swimming lessons. Like I was saving for a deposit for my house. Like the last thing on my mind was swimming lessons. But I always knew like, oh, I need to do that at some point. Like when I get
Where
into
did
a
that
tough.
come from? Where did that level of incredible drive come from to buy your house? Because I thought I bought my house at 21 and I thought that was early. Buying your house at 18, why, what was the drive to do it so early and to get that freedom and to kind of get out of Dodge?
I don't know, like, cause my house, like, to like my family home towards like when I got into my teenage years was like really stable because I just lived with my dad and my brother. Um, but I was kind of like houses prices are so extortionate, and I knew if I didn't do it then I'd never have done it. Because like that's the only chance really that I'm gonna get to live at home for a relatively low cost and get to save all the money that I earn. So I literally did nothing, drove around this shitty old Mini Cooper, worked 7 days a week, literally would go from my office job in the day to work at Starbucks at night. And I literally would non-stop, literally like 20 hours a day just work. And then 6 months later I bought my house.
That sounds so much like me, but what surprises me is there's like a 10-year age gap between me and you, though. It sounds really harsh, but I didn't see and don't hear many people your age with that same level of tenacious drive. Because you're right. You said, oh, I could see that this was this, and I could see how expensive things were getting. Everybody sees that, but doing something about it is very different. It's like somebody that says, "Oh, I need to get in shape," or "Oh, I need to save a bit of money," and they do
Yeah.
fuck all about it. They know the reality. They can see the fucking bank account, they can see the waist belt, they can see whatever, but they're not doing anything about it. Why were you so driven though? I mean, what did your parents do? What did your brother do? Where did it come from?
Like my parents, like my whole family is very like common. Like we were brought up in council houses, which is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I just didn't want that for me. Like I knew that I was capable of doing whatever I wanted to do. So if I didn't like that, then no one else was going to change it. I wasn't going to get a cushy deposit from my parents. Like I
Yeah,
knew
no,
that wasn't
100%.
ever going to happen. I knew I wasn't ever going to embark in some nice inheritance in 5 years' time. I knew that if I didn't do it then, I'd be in the same situation as them, and the loop continued. Like I just didn't want that for me, and I had obviously the opportunity to like see the negative sides of that happening, and was like, I'm not going to do that, and that was that. That was in my head, and
That's
that's why
so
I made
strong though,
sure.
because I remember reading a story about a lad, about the twin boys, and their dad was an alcoholic, and it's one of those examples where so many people have the same set of circumstances, but it's the way they choose to look at it. Because I know, so many people that grew up in supported housing or government housing and stuff like that, and one of the sons in that story would be like, he grew up to be an alcoholic, and his excuse was, "Well, my dad was an alcoholic. What do you expect?" and the other one grew up to, be quite successful in business, own a number of properties, and his excuse was exactly the same but the opposite. And it was, well, my dad was an alcoholic and I was never gonna head down that route. You'd obviously, I'm not saying your dad was an alcoholic, but you'd obviously come from a background where you were like, I don't fucking want this, and it is within my power to do it. Whereas you'd have been well within your rights, and I'm sure you probably knew people from around where you grew up who were always like,
Mm.
well, look, my mum and dad always grew up here, their grandma and granddad always grew up here, their mum and dad grew up here. I'm going to fucking end up here. This is where I'm going to end up. That's obviously going to happen. You chose to be the one that changed that set of circumstances for yourself. It's fucking huge. I'm sure in your natural laissez-faire approach to life, you're kind of like, oh no, I just kind of did it. There's a beautiful simplicity in the way you applied yourself to something like that, though.
Yeah, it is crazy because like obviously I did have like in school like lots of people just like did whatever their parents did, and like I had like some really good friends that went through some hard stuff as well, and like it was just difficult for like maybe a lot of us. But I think, yeah, like you said, like however you decide to take that, and I didn't really take it very negatively. Like my parents were both alcoholics and drug abusers, but they like come out the other side. But I just decided to, like, that wasn't going to be me, and I wasn't going to have no excuse, like, no, I had no one to blame. This is my life. Like, I was still young, like I had a fresh plate, like, and I was like, I'm
God, I
gonna
love that.
be fine. Yeah. And I met my partner quite young, which was really lucky because obviously it's really hard to buy a house alone. In this day and age, like where house prices are like more than your life.
Fucking stupid,
Um,
yeah.
so luckily I met my partner really early, and we both just like had our heads screwed on, which was great. And I just started to, well, as soon as I left school, like I went to a pretty bad school in my area. As soon as I left school, in the nicest way, I just didn't fucking talk to anyone, and I surrounded myself with like the most like the most motivated people. I always made sure I was the poorest on the table, and I always like made sure like
Fucking love
everyone
that.
around me had like better stuff. And then I was like, I am only going to be motivated if I see them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I want all of that. Like I was
Yeah.
jealous, but not bad jealous. I was
No,
good
no, no, no.
jealous.
Inspired. Yeah,
Like yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like I always say to people like, oh, like I'm jealous of those people, but not bad. Like, I don't,
no,
not
no, no.
jealous of
Not
them where
like
I
I
don't
want
want
them
them
to.
to have it.
There's a great thing. It's like, do you want to be better by tearing other people down or by learning how they've done it and celebrating them? That's why I love the kind of little group that we've got going on with some of the people that were on the SAS team, because it's all about standing front row and cheering each other on and being like, that's fucking amazing. It's not like, oh, check him out or check her out or fucking hell, ego this or ego. There's none of that. It's that incredible, like you said, value of association, putting yourself around people that inspired you, that not that they make you feel bad and like, oh God, I'm shit because everyone else is doing so well. You can always be a student if you want to be. And being around those people and going, wow, that's incredible. Swallowing your humility and saying, how did you do that? What, I don't want to be like you, but I want my own version of kind of what you've achieved, maybe. So, what was some of your strategies and how did you go about it? But the ability for you to separate yourself from other people, for most people, is the fucking hardest thing, because a lot of people will be like, were you fucking better than me, Rosie? Are you? Who are you? Just what? So you're saying my life is shit and you want to go and do all this stuff. How did you discipline yourself not to pander to that, not to be like, oh no, yeah, absolutely, of course we'll stay in touch, and because you have to put so much of your focus on your own ambitions.
Yeah, I feel like it is difficult, and probably like if you spoke to maybe 20 people that used to be in my year at school, they'd probably be like, yeah, she just stuck up, like she just left everyone, like, but they don't have to understand that because like
Yeah.
I don't owe anything to them, they don't owe anything to me, and what anyone decides to do, like, if you want to like leave school and follow your parents' footsteps, like if you're happy with that, then great, like I'm not judging. However, I didn't want that, and I knew those people didn't weren't going to take me there. So I had to be selfish and be like, "You're not going to help me get there. This is difficult anyway, and I need to surround myself with really good people." But I still have one friend from school, so like one friend, um, and I'm like 22, so I didn't even leave school that long ago. But yeah, I still have one friend, and we like have completely different lives, you know. Like she went to uni, like which was great for her. She now like has gone on to get a job in what she did at uni, but I like left school, got like three jobs and just hustled. Like we went down really different paths, but like both great paths, and she's doing great and I'm doing great. But like I get along with, like, we stayed so close, like we always message each other, we're so proud of each other. Um but yeah, like I'm not saying you have to go down the same journey as me, but ultimately I need to do what's best for me. So if me hanging around with a bunch of 55-year-old people that are motivated and have bloody properties left, right, and centre is going to motivate me and make me a better person, then that's what I'm going to do.
100%.
Um, yeah, like my best friend, she's literally like nearly 40 years old. Like she is my best friend. I call her every day. Like she has a lovely house, lovely kids. Like realistically, we have like fuck all really you would say in common, but we do because like
Yeah.
we're both just passionate
You got that
people.
energy, baby. Yeah, you
Um,
got that mindset.
yeah, yeah, and like you would like some people would be like that's so weird. Like why would you want to hang around with her? But like she motivates me and like she makes me a better person, you know. So like great.
They're the people you've got to surround yourself with. So, when you went into going on the show, how did you find being around 20 strangers? That again, we spoke about the value of association, but these are people from all kinds of different backgrounds. You're living amongst it, right in there with them.
It was really odd, I think, because I am like, I'm not like I do compare. I am competitive, like in my sport, but I'm not a very competitive person in regards to like. So I was like, at first, I was like, oh, like I hope people don't think we're competing, so I just want to be friends. But yeah, I loved it. Like I'm like I always go to different gyms in jiu-jitsu, so I'm always like, hi, like being
Yeah.
really friendly. And like even like in the show, like I remember saying to Billy was like, how do you find it being in there? And I was literally like I love it. Like I love learning from all these people. Like they like and loads of you guys had so much more like life experience than me, I felt. So I like loved hearing about it. Like I loved it. I also like enjoy like seeing how like different people deal with different characters. Like it's
I
so
love that.
fun. Like,
That human
and
psychology and what drives each person, and that fascinates me.
yeah, and like it was just so funny. Like some everyone had such big characteristics, so it made it even more
There
entertaining.
was
Like
some
we were all
fucking
just
huge characters. I mean, I don't know how much of it. Obviously, people won't hear this sort of chat until all the episodes have come out. But when we see them, because we'll all be getting together at some point. I don't know, December or January or something.
yeah.
We'll get a chance to see it all. But it will be interesting to see how much of all the dorm stuff makes it onto the show. Like Grant with his epic dancing, and then God, just Levi or me and Danica stretching, or just everyone just kind of. There was some big characters in the room, and it was interesting to see how those sort of peaks and trough came as we went through the different events.
Yeah, and it was so weird because like I feel like people just got more open and more open. Like
Yeah.
even like Josh was such a closed book, but like towards the end, like he was like in there, like shaking his head when we were singing. Like I was making him like hug me. All this, I was like, "Come on, give me a hug, Josh." Like
Josh is a
I thought,
great guy.
yeah, like towards the end, everyone was just like they like we were so fucked you had to help each other. So like everyone all the people that like was first trying to be a closed book, like everyone was just like, right, these people are here to help me. And we
Yeah.
just
How did you find it from day one then? So when you kind of saw everybody, because what people don't know is like we obviously went through quarantine for a bit before we went on the show, and then as we went down to, I suppose it was the river on the first day, wasn't it? We got balaclava and taken down to a river, and then we were punt along on these tiny little boats with these little little ladies going through. But it was stunning. Oh my god, it was just so unbelievably beautiful in there. How was your head when that finally started and we kind of rounded that corner and we saw the DS?
it was it was like it was so crazy to like, is this real? Like, is this
Yeah,
real? But I was just trying to like through the whole thing, I was like, be present, like just live in the moment. And like if I stopped doing that, so if I was like, what's gonna be next? I used to count to five and then I'd be present again. Like I'd be like, right, you have 5 seconds to worry about whatever you're worrying about in your little head, and then you're gonna channel back in and be present again. And that's literally the entire time. Like when I would even sit in the dorm and be sad that we're not at home, I'd be like, right, count to five, and then you're going again. Like you'll be present again in this dorm. So like every time I like got ahead of myself, I was like,
That's a
Rosie,
great
channel back in.
reset because I know like Amelia and a few others really struggled with that aspect of control and what's coming next and that nervous anxiety and that constant almost adrenaline dump of worrying what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, what's coming next. Some people really struggle with that.
Do you know what I think? Like the only thing that maybe made my head go a little bit is like everyone was so athletic. Like I was probably the least athletic person there. Like
You
let's
think?
be honest.
No.
And yeah, I honestly do think.
I think
And
Steven
like that
struggled
was
a bit. Steven really struggled. I know he's a wrestler and stuff, but he
yeah,
was he was probably one of the bigger boys in there, bless him. But go on.
yeah. But I so that's kind of how I felt, and everyone will have like a different feel. But I was like, oh, like everyone's so athletic, you know. Like I've never run a marathon. I've never I've done jujitsu. Do you know what I mean? Um, So not like, oh, how I was just like, how am I going to keep up with these lot? That was kind of like how I was like, and then it was just so strange because I saw some like fucking fit people lose their head, and it was so sad to see because I was like, their potential is just massive
Yeah.
if they just could like if I don't know, like if they just talk to people to like help sort that out, I don't know. But I was just like when I was looking around, I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna keep up with these fuckers. Um
How did you find the first one? So because when we got there and we jumped off and swam up, that was kind of the first beasting, wasn't it? Because I think everyone expected to get changed and like get into military
yeah.
kit straight away, but we did like a whole thing up and down stairs and running around and burpees and press ups and all sorts of shit. How did you find that first injection of it?
So that one I don't think was that bad. Like I actually like the beast and like even do you remember the beast in the parade square with the sand like all the sand and stuff?
Yeah, there was one a couple of days in, wasn't there, where we lost like three or four
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, so that those ones I didn't find that bad. The
Yeah.
ones that I found bad were like when we had to run for a long time. Like I'm no runner, me. So like when we had to run with those bloody Bergens, like that would literally destroy me
That
because
weight
like
for you must have been because it's proportional, really, isn't it? Because everyone had the same weight, but you're like half the size of me.
I literally think my back was broken like two days after carrying that fucker. Yeah, but honestly, like I didn't really mind doing loads of burpees or stuff like that, but like actually running for me is like not the one.
That was something
So
I was worried about. What was your favorite challenge? Because obviously, you stayed in for so much longer than I did after I'd bounced my knee out. Because I was there for some of the cool high rope stuff, and we had lots of big swims, and we did the shooting, and with the waterfall. The waterfall was amazing.
the waterfall was crazy, wasn't it? I don't know. It's so hard to pick one. So like I basically like we so I was obviously there on the final day,
Mm.
but I liked walking across the metal poles on the like crane.
Oh yeah, one way up high. Yeah,
Yeah, I liked that one.
you were good at that. I was shit at that.
Hard. Yeah, I feel like that was so hard. Because of the literally every other day we had a swimming challenge and everything that was fun. You had to freaking swim to it, and I hate swimming, so that like ruined it for most of them. But I like the waterfall one, although felt like I was drowning for most of the time. So I was like,
It was when you, I think when you were like a third of the way down, you kind of went under an underhang, didn't it? And it literally was just like a fucking fire hose in the face while she tried to. Because I got my hand trapped underneath. I think most people got something trapped when you as you drop underneath. Someone got fucking lost over the right hand side in the fucking bushes. Who the fuck was that? Who was that?
was that Scott?
I think it was Scott. He was fucking going somewhere else. I don't know where the hell he was going.
I don't really know. I felt like I just did it really slow, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Trying to breathe."
Well, who was your favorite DS? I did because we had a new DS this year, didn't we? We had Chris as well.
I feel like it was really hard. Like, I liked all their personalities. However, I feel like actually, like, do you know if you had to be friends with one of them and who you would get on most with in regards to your characteristics? I actually think it would probably be Billy. Like, I just feel like his thought process similar because his thought processes are mad. But I felt like I could relate to what
Hmm.
more of some things that he said. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like weirdly I had a like a stronger connection with him.
Well, he's the most authentic one of them, with the greatest of respect. He's done, he was the highest decorated one who had actually been in the SAS for probably the longest, to be fair. And also, if have you read any of his books?
Yeah, and I've watched quite a few of like when he's been on podcasts and stuff. Like
He's an absolutely
always
incredible
watch
guy.
his
He's
stuff.
really, really highly
Yeah,
decorated individual as well. I love, and I think a lot of it came from obviously some of the leadership positions that he got into. He has a really clinical, tactical mindset where he can, just ascertain the risk, ascertain the benefit, the reward, the effort required, and detach that emotional part of life and really just hone in on what needs to be done, what the aspects of it are. I think Foxy, by comparison, has probably a higher level of things like emotional intelligence. Foxy's been through his own challenges with things like PTSD and stuff like that, and I think he has a really unique ability to build rapport with people. Whereas I think Billy is much stronger in that leadership role. I was really, really happy to see him as the lead DS because it just made sense.
yeah.
I feel like he's the most authentic that's ever been on the show, and I was so glad to see him in that role.
And just like in the mirror rooms and stuff, I just felt like I had mirror room with all of them. So like I had my first one was with Chris and Rudy, and then my second one was with Foxy and Billy. And I just felt like in the mirror rooms, me and Billy kind of just I don't know, like do you know when you're saying something and someone could almost finish a sentence?
Yeah.
That's how I felt with him. Yeah, he's scary though.
What did you find was the hardest bits as you were coming to the final few days of it? What was that moment for you where it was enough? Because a few people at those points, a few people did get medically withdrawn, and a few people just felt like it was their time.
So mine was just my feet. My feet were fucked. So before the interrogation, we had to like trek for like miles, and we I hadn't aired my feet in like over 24 hours. So
Really?
at this point, I already had jungle rot, and trench foot. So my feet were like bad, like they were awful. And then made us in the interrogation take all like our clothes off, then our underwear, and take our
Oh.
socks off, and then sock, put our foot back in the boot without the sock.
Oh, really?
So that was like bad. That was like my foot at that point felt like this is
Yeah.
fat. Like, do you know all those bloody sounds? Like
Yeah, yeah, the
in the
screaming and stuff.
interrogation.
Yeah.
I couldn't even think about them because I was too bothered about my feet. My feet were fucking dying.
Really?
I've never felt pain like it. I've never cried because I've been in so much pain, like never.
Wow.
And there was just like tears in my eyes constantly because they were just like like they were on fire. And
Yeah.
then my toes started going numb.
Oh,
And
shit.
we were stood, obviously, like we were stood in these stress positions. And I
Yeah.
think at one point I was like stood up straight with my hands over my head for like a total 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then they would like randomly sit me down. So we were like, I was like up and down for 6 hours. And then they would like keep walking you to obviously the interrogators on my feet at this point. I could barely walk. And he was like, hurry up. And I was like, trying. And then I was like, I can't fucking stand anymore. Like I literally can't stand. So I was like, I need to get out of here. Like my feet are gonna fall off. Like my toes, like I couldn't feel them. Like when they were
Really?
making me stand, I could feel myself like wobbling because my like I couldn't feel my toes anymore. Like my
Wow.
balance wasn't there. And then I went to the Empire and he was like, Rosie, like, well, he was like, number eight, are you sure that you fucking want to do this? Like you've got this far, like you're doing good.
Yeah.
Go back. So I was like, okay, right, I'm gonna go back. And like I was like, can I just do my shoes tighter, like to try and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
suck the pain from them. he let me do my shoes tight. I went back in there, and then the doctor could clearly see that my feet were fat. So the doctor pulled me back in the room, like they unmasked me, and he was like, "Can I see your feet?" Showed him my feet, and he was like, I'm about to be really honest with you, and like it's your call." He was like, "Your feet are fucked. You do have jungle rot and trench foot, and the problem is here is that after the interrogation it's not over." So he basically said like, "You will have to do a physical task after the interrogation," which at that point like, I just flooded with tears because I literally couldn't stand up. So the thought of having to run was like I knew that my feet just wasn't gonna freaking do it. I knew at that point like this is it because my feet won't run. Like I can't run. And then I literally just cried. And then he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get the DS." And I was
Oh,
like,
bless.
"Okay." And then the Empire and the DS come in, and then Billy was literally like, "You've done so well. Like you've restored faith, like in young people again for me.
100%.
Like." But I was so sad. Like I was just so sad because like I honestly like my head felt good. My body was like okay, like don't get me wrong, it wasn't bloody perfect, but it was doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It was just like my feet were just I can't even describe the pain. Like I've never experienced anything like it. And
Yeah.
now I kind of think like, oh, maybe I should have just asked, like tried my luck and asked for like bandages, to
Yeah.
try and wrap them up. But I think at that point I was just like fuck.
Yeah. That must have been
So
such a head fog.
yeah, it was so annoying. It was so frustrating. It was so frustrating
How have you
because
felt about it
I
coming back?
like coming back. I actually feel less frustrated because I'm like, it is what it is, Rosie. Like
Yeah.
it's just life. And you'll learn from that. Like maybe I should have took care of my feet a bit more, or but I don't know. Yeah, and then but then I also felt like, oh, there was maybe things like you could have asked for things to wrap your feet up and just got through, like, because I think after that there was like 3 hours to go,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more, but that I was like hours away from being at the end. So I was
Yeah.
like, fucking hell. But uh, yeah, but it like, and then I'm kind of like you gave it, like I gave it everything I fucking had. You know what I mean? Like I gave it everything I had, like or everything I'd done. Like I know I was never a front runner. Like I was often fucking at the back, but I gave it every inch of my human being to like stay there and give it everything I got.
Gotta
So
love that.
it was, yeah, it's what it is, isn't it?
How do you feel about yourself like coming back now? Has anything changed for you? Do you think about life differently? Has it made you want to go and do anything different? Has it made you want to get more or less serious with stuff? Because there's been some incredible difference in people's revelations and how people have seen things, and I'm sure you've probably seen it in like the WhatsApp groups and stuff like that. Is the way that people are going about things now for some people has changed, because I know everyone's at a different chapter in life as well, though.
Yeah, like I think now I'm like more motivated to actually do more like physical stuff, like running, like shit like that, because I'm shit at running, and ultimately I did get through those shit running stages.
100%.
Um, so like I want to do like a marathon one day and stuff like that, but ultimately I think it's just taught me like I have way more in the tank than I ever thought I did, and ultimately and like all the people in there were such strong people that are ambitious and motivated. And I don't think I would have done that without every single person in there. Like I
Yeah.
don't think I would have got that far. Like if you made me do all those tasks on my own, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So like it then showed me again, like, okay, now you need to go home and make sure you're surrounded with people like that, because you got that far with all those people that you didn't even know 10 days ago.
Yeah.
So like yeah, like that's what made me think the most.
I think people like that, they're like a performance enhancer. Do you know what I mean? You can put yourself around
Yeah.
people like that, and that rising tide kind of raises all the ships, that energy, that tenacity, that motivation. It's infectious. It really is. They always say, attitudes are contagious. Would you want somebody catching yours? And for me, absolutely. But I always try and put myself around people that are of a greater, more resilient mindset. And it's exactly what I said to Billy. That was the big thing I wanted to come in there for when they came into the medical room and said, look, you're fucked, you can't walk. You've got to go, basically. For me, it was around trying to put myself around people, because that's been the greatest thing for me in the emergency services, being around people who have just done some fucking incredible stuff, just some stuff that they've had to dig so far into their own resourcefulness and resolve that it brings out something really, really unique within them. And I think it's so incredible to see someone like yourself doing that now at such a young age. You've got so much time on your side. It's such, and I always tell people, I feel like I'm a baby. You know what I mean? I'm 33 and I still feel young. So I've still got like 30, 40 years to fuck about and have fun and have adventures and try and fail and succeed in life and business and career and fitness. And you've got that mindset so young, which is just so goddamn exciting.
Yeah, it's so good. But then it's so mad as well. Because I'm also like, I get scared that I'm like, am I like going to get to 30 and have a midlife crisis? Because like, have I done too much? Like,
No.
but then I'm just like, oh, I'll be fine. Like, every week you find new shit to do, don't you?
Always. Yeah. And it hasn't got to be bigger or smaller or further or heavier or more expensive or anything like that. It's just about chapters of life. That's what it's all about. The big challenge for me is reinventing yourself. That evolution of people's character is a really exciting thing. So you've got so many more chapters to write, and I'm super excited being front row, cheering you on as you go. I feel like the people that we've developed friendships in this are the sort of people that, I could go 3 months, 6 months, 2 years without seeing them, and I'd love to just meet you guys up for a weekend in frickin' Scotland and just have a massive catch up and share and support each other and celebrate each other, what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's so good as well because I feel like, like everyone's personal hobbies have made me like try new things. Like Denish's yoga throughout SAS, like literally motivated me. So I go to yoga classes twice a week since I've been back.
Good girl.
And
That
like,
mobility is a game changer, honestly.
like how freaking strong was she the entire time? Like I was
Yeah.
literally like, sorry, I need a bit of what she's got. So I'm trying to do that. And like just like I said, like running, like everyone did such a good job. Like even Faye like had like 20 years on me and she ran like a freaking
Faye is super
workhorse.
fit, super, super fit.
So fit. Like I was like, what the fuck? And then yeah, like just doing like I guess everyone's kind of motivated me in different ways,
Glad to
Good.
see it. Right. Well, I really look forward to catching up, hopefully in December or January. But I know by the time this comes out, we'll all have laughed and cried and seen it all together. But send my love to the family, send my love to you fella, send my love to that puppy, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, and hope you get better.
I will be. My goal is by the time we all get together, I will be walking without a brace. I'll have put a bit of weight back on. I'll be fit. I'll be strong. I might not be running. I might not be squatting down to the floor, but that's the goal for me. And hopefully I'll be able to see you all and give you a big cuddle.
Yeah, it'd be good. Thank you so much for
Oh, my
having
love.
me on, Pete. I really enjoyed it.
I'll speak to you soon. All right.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Firefighters podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.